Hi there, Jean Greer here at Stylish Fireplaces with part 2 of our 10 pro tips for installing an electric fireplace. So we have installed thousands of electric fireplaces over the past 2 decades, and we know what are the most common mistakes or the most common things that our clients overlook when they're planning an installation. So we've put together 10 pro tips from our team. I've covered 5 of those in another video, and here we go with the other 5. So let's start with determining the electrical connection. Is it going to be a hardwire or a plug-in? A lot of our fireplaces can be either or. There are situations where you don't really have a choice, that the building code is going to, for safety reasons, determine how you wire the fireplace. So if the fireplace comes with a cord and a plug, but building code says, you can't do that, just know that all of the cords and plugs can be removed and a direct wire could be made. And most of the owner's manuals will go through both types of wiring and let you know that. And of course, if you're on 120 volts, which all of our fireplaces can connect to, there will often be a plug, or most likely be a plug included with the fireplace. If you can also connect to 240 volts, you will always have a hardwire connection. It will never be on a plug with an electric fireplace. So those two distinctions will determine plug-in versus hardwire. The other way that you're going to know this, and where the building code comes in and electrical safety comes in, is the difference between a built-in fireplace where the wall materials come down over part of the firebox and that firebox cannot be removed. I will not have access to the electrical connection. Therefore, that fireplace cannot be on a plug. It will be direct wired. If you weren't able to direct wire it for some reason, then you would have to have an access panel that would allow a human to get arms in there to access the electrical connection and the receptacle in case of an electrical fault. So if that's not something you want to see in your wall and it's not something you can hide, then you need to know a built-in electric fireplace is going to be hardwired, and you need to allow for that when you run your electrical connection. A slide-in fireplace, one that goes in at the end of the process after the wall is finished and which can be removed again, that type of fireplace could be hardwired, but it can also be on a plug, on a receptacle in most areas. So you want to just know the difference and be prepared if the fireplace you're thinking of must be hardwired and you're not sure you can provide that. You need to think ahead about that. So condos are particularly challenging where we really can't run new wiring in many cases, and it is going to have to work on an existing receptacle, and you don't want to choose a fireplace that has to be hardwired in that situation. So do be aware of the differences in that, and if you're not sure, check the owner's manual. The other thing you want to think about with the wiring is whether you're connecting to 120 volts or 240 volts. So we've touched on that a little bit with the electrical connection. All electric fireplaces can connect to 120 volts. Some electric fireplaces are what we call dual voltage, so they could also be connected to 240 volts, which gives us more power for the heaters. So there are more and more of those fireplaces available with electrics. You want to think ahead to, am I needing a 120 volt connection or a 240 volt connection? Obviously, if you're working with an existing outlet, it's 120 volts. If you're starting from scratch, you could do either or. So just think about whether you need 240 volts because you want more power for the heater, or whether you're okay with 120, and just check with your electrician to find out if you have the ability to do either or. But do look at the fireplace specs to know what your options are and then figure out what's best for you. Then we want to talk about where is the electrical connection made on the unit. So if I'm looking at the fireplace right to left, some manufacturers put the electrical connection on the bottom right, some put it on the bottom left, some put it on the top left. You need to look at the diagram in the owner's manual and see where is the electrical connection being made so that you can place your electrical wiring in the right zone of the opening to make the connection as simple as possible. And if you're mounting the fireplace on the wall surface and you want a direct wire connection to eliminate the cord, you absolutely want the electrical wire coming out of the wall right where the electrical connection will be made on the back of the firebox. So I don't want my wire coming out of the wall on the upper right and finding out that my firebox is connected to the electrical on the lower left. That's just a lot of extra work and wires, and making sure that everything is long enough. And also, if you're using the cord and the plug, keep in mind that the typical cord on an electric fireplace is around 6 feet long. So if you're further away than that from the electrical outlet, your cord may not reach, and we really don't want the fireplace on an extension cord if at all possible. That's not an ideal situation. So you do want to know where the connection is coming out of the back of the firebox and where are you connecting it inside your opening or on your wall, and plan ahead for that positioning. And always make sure that the receptacle, if there is one, isn't directly behind the fireplace. When they give you framing instructions for the fireplace in the owner's manual, they are not including the depth it takes to plug something in. That needs to be off to the sides somewhere. So in mine, you can see there's electrical cable running down over here, and there's a receptacle off to the side of this opening. It is not directly behind the fireplace, because that would be pushing the fireplace forward out of the opening. So some things to plan around, knowing where the electrical connection will be made. Confirm your trim kit. So a lot of our fireplaces are plug and play, what I call plug and play. Everything you need is included, and there isn't really any additional trim needed. Some of the traditional fireboxes have trim kits for retrofitting and covering gaps in an existing masonry opening. Some of the linear fireplaces have what we call semi-flush trim kits that allow me to put a 6-inch fireplace into a 4-inch hole and then cover up the part that sticks out of the wall. Sometimes, not a lot right now, but sometimes there are decorative trims available. Do not assume there is a trim kit available if you think you need one. Always check to see if there is such a thing, and don't assume that trims that you see on the front of the fireplace are removable, because usually they're not. There are exceptions, but if whatever you see around the outer edges of the fireplace is generally not removable, there are exceptions, but that is something you would find in the manual. But don't assume there's going to be an auxiliary trim kit for whatever you might need one for. Always check ahead. Not all manufacturers make semi-flush trim kits. Not all traditional fireboxes come with trim kits to cover gaps. So you always need to do a little research on that and know whether you're going to have a trim kit and how that trim kit is going to attach or detach, so that you can plan your finishing materials accordingly. And last but not least, know the difference between indoor and outdoor fireplaces. And that sounds really basic, and why would she say such a thing? All electric fireplaces are designed for indoor use. Some manufacturers are also having their fireplaces tested for indoor-outdoor use, meaning it could be exposed to the elements, which would be moisture and dust and so forth. Just because you have let's say a covered porch or a 3-season room doesn't make that an indoor space. Indoor, for the purposes of an electric fireplace, is something that is fully enclosed with a roof over it, and it is climate controlled. So if that doesn't describe your space, then I would not put an indoor fireplace, an indoor electric fireplace, into that space. You would need an outdoor rated fireplace. When a manufacturer subjects their fireplace to outdoor rating, they are testing it differently. It is being tested and checked for its ability to withstand the temperature changes and the elements that it's going to be exposed to potentially outdoors. And always with an outdoor electric fireplace, there will be specifications for some sort of overhang above the fireplace, so that there's never direct access for moisture to drop onto the top or the opening of the fireplace. And typically they're designed a little bit differently so that there aren't any easy access points for moisture to get in. But do check whether or not the manufacturer has rated and tested the fireplace for outdoor use. And if in doubt whether an area is indoor enough, it probably isn't. If you have to ask that question, you really should go to an outdoor fireplace if there's any question of being exposed to elements or huge fluctuations in the environment around it. So those are our 5 of our 10 tips for installing electric fireplaces. Check our other video for the other 5 tips. And if you're looking for an owner's manual for your particular fireplace, you can always go to stylishfireplaces.ca, search for the model you have, and you'll always find an installation tab with a manual.